Hello, good people. Welcome back to another blessed message with Lady Nye, also known as Minister. Hey, ow, 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 ow. Ow. Welcome back. Okay, so this might be the final one for today. Okay, but just remember to watch all of them. Okay, because there's a message. There's clear messages within each one, but collectively, together, that was the word. There is a clear direction that God is leading His people in. Okay, together, all of them. Yep. So this is the thing. Um, God told me there are lasting effects from many events in our lives. These things being one that no one discusses. Just another thing to get over. Okay? And perhaps this is true, but the same lasting impressions can occur when it comes to betrayal, heartbreak, love, lost, and death. Okay? That's what God told me is the residual effects, specifically in my case, the beast thing. Okay, so if you look at the video I had on black, um, you see that I had a clear, swollen portion of my eye or under eye. It was swollen. It was, it was evident that something had taken place. And for many, that can exist in the form of a cut, you'll form a scar, where it's something that, is taking place in your life. You have the evidence, okay? But as you can see now, it's cleared up for the most part. Like I said, I probably need to put some eye cream and all those things, but there's no clear evidence that anything actually happened there, So if I were to tell somebody today, oh, I was stung by a bee last week, they'd be like, oh, okay, but I don't see any evidence of that, right? And that's often what happens when you experience some form of emotional or mental anguish, like betrayal, heartbreak, death. You don't really have the physical signs or the physical evidence. Therefore, uh, people may not necessarily understand your pain. They may not understand that you are grieving, or they may not even understand what you're actually going through. So here, I'm going to continue to read. Pain from a bee sting subsides after a few hours, and that is true. So once I initially was stung by a bee, I did some research just to be like, okay, what am I supposed to do now? I wanted to be clear that my eye would basically go back to its normal state, okay? And, I was going to follow prescribed procedures to ensure that. But pain went away after a few hours, and then you'll have swelling, discoloration for a few days, and they said from 3 to 5 days, which also was accurate. I had swelling and slight discoloration. But after all that has gone away and all these things have happened, in my research, there was no discussion of the lasting effects or the lasting impressions of trauma once you experienced a bee sting. And again, the same is true when it comes to emotional and mental trauma. There are lasting impressions, but oftentimes we brush them to the side, we throw them under the rug, or we ignore them. So it often makes it difficult to just get over. We have learned to be resilient in society, and I dare to say, especially African Americans in this American society, we learn to be resilient, to just move forwards. We forgot about slavery happened and all these things, and there are several systems that wants us to just forget about it, to move forward. Oh, that was long ago. It really wasn't that long ago, okay? And oftentimes when I'm in public spaces and I look around, I see that, just recently I was in a space where it was like a plethora of different types of people, different nationalities and ethnic groups. And it was a pleasure to see. However, you have to keep it in the forefront of your mind. Years ago, that would have never taken place. That would have never happened. you will be subjected to some type of punishment for being in an environment where you're gathering freely and all these things with people of different ethnicities. So yeah, that's the thing. Lasting impressions. People want you to get over it. But another thing, as a result, you learn to practice good self care and self awareness. So again, being in these spaces, even though it's legal, and we know that everything that's legal is not righteous. And it's sad when you have to make laws to tell people who they can interact with or who they can just be close to. But that's what has to happen in the condition and the climate that we live in. But again, everything that's legal is not righteous. But you learn to kind of be aware. To be aware is to be alive. And you don't take things for granted as much. So the more we progress as a society, it's going to be harder for our children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren, all these people to actually understand how this is actually pretty significant to be able to gather in these spaces. And this is why I love museums, and I had the pleasure, and I always do this, take my daughter, and when my sons were little, we would go to museums and we would learn about history, especially when it comes to civil rights. This is important, word to the wise, because they're trying to remove it from history. Number one, they've always done that, but those newer generations are not going to have the insight that we have. They're not going to have the grandmothers who were there, who witnessed it for themselves, and who can share these experiences. And I do thank God for technology where we can have some history preserved through videos and media and things like that, where we can kind of share those things. But museums are also an opportunity to share historical facts. Okay, so I'm saying all this to say that that historical trauma may not resonate the same for the up and coming generations. Yeah. So taking care of yourself is essential for your soul. You learn to practice good self-care. So when you experience trauma, even stuff like racism and segregation, all these things, you learn to practice self-care. Self-preservation becomes like imminent. It becomes the thing that you desire most. So if we know anything about history, we know that a lot of times people would try to protect their families by staying indoors, staying away from any type of drama or any conflict and things like that. And I wrote here that this is important. I'm a proponent for self-care, meaning that I believe that you should never neglect yourself. And I just want to put this in here. If you need a break, take a break. This is important. The worst thing you can do is waste time and waste your life by neglecting your needs. Yes, by neglecting your needs. And remember that Jesus prayed alone because it was good for his soul. So again, when it comes to those emotional and mental residual effects of pain that lingers on, God will handle it. You just have to give it over to him. That is what God is telling me. So just like a bee sting, the visible evidence will fade away. You'll move on with your life. You'll pick up the pieces. You'll know that the worst part of the pain is over. But God is telling me it's up to you to keep going. So I have wrote something down. I won't get there. Okay. So it's up to you to keep going. And I'm using again the bee sting as an analogy for life events. Things that will injure you emotionally, that may affect your mental state or your mental well-being. This is important to know that it's up to you to keep going. Yeah. So even when people don't acknowledge your pain, they don't respect your position, or they don't understand your grief, you still have the option to keep going, even with the residue still there. Because you'll have the faint memory, or somebody might mention something. that post-traumatic stress, associated with offering your heart again, will linger on in the back of your mind. But it's up to you to keep going. It's up to you to fight another day. And I want to also say that when it comes to failed relationships and friendship betrayals, is really significant. Even family betrayals. It's like that residue. And I think that this, because I didn't reread it, I had written this probably last week, and I think that it was associated with a quote that Maya Angelou made in the video that I was watching concerning her advice. And I had made a statement concerning that as well. So she said, to be a friend or to gain a friend, you must be a friend. And in my mind, my immediate thought was, well, maybe I'm not ready to be a friend because the residual effects of some things that had taken place in the past. But just like I'm stating here to whoever's viewing, it's up to you to move forward. I received that message myself. It's up to me to move forward. It's up to me to not hold the next person, the next potential friend, accountable for things that other people have done. So that's how you have to view it. So as I review the damage to my face in the moment, I told you I love bees, right? So there was a campaign going on concerning the bee becoming extinct, and I was like, oh no, we have to protect the bees and all these things, and what can we do? And I think they were like plant flowers, all these things. So I was like, okay, I can advocate for that. So I say all that to say, and just referring back to the previous message concerning this, is that sometimes it will be the people that you love the most to hurt you. So it'll be your family, your friends, your associates, people you thought you could trust and rely on that will hurt you. But again, it's up to you to move forward. So I could look at the damage to my face and be like, oh, all bees stink, all bees get on my nerves, I don't like any bees, all these. I could say all that. However, when I looked at the damage to my face, I didn't resent the bee that had done it at all. That's also known as forgiveness. Yeah. And love, unconditional love, like God tells us to possess. Yeah, I didn't. So the same could be said with the people. And I know it's a little more detailed, a little more complicated, a little more perplexed when you're dealing with people in your lives, especially people that you had a certain level of respect for or a certain level of affection for. And it's harder. However, I will say this, my love for bees didn't waver based on that one incident. Yeah, my love for bees didn't waver just because I had a bee sting, because this is what I came to the conclusion of and what God revealed to me. A bee is going to do what a bee is going to do. And for those who don't know, bees sting. That's a part of their life cycle. That's a part of who they are. And some people betray. That is what I got from that. Yeah. So just like bees sting, some people betray. This is the thing. You have to learn to meet people where they are and deal with them accordingly. And if you have been watching, you know that I gave information concerning what love and forgiveness looks like. Love and forgiveness does not have to mean reconnection or trust or tolerance. It doesn't have to mean that. It just means that you have care and concern for that person's soul, that person's spirit. It could be reconnection, though. That's the thing. It's up to you. What is it? But it's up to you to move forward and to keep going and to decide what that means for you, what that looks like for you. It's up to you. So if somebody has betrayed you, done you wrong, and you see potential there and you want to forgive them and love them and move on, then do that. But again, test those spirits. I will never stop reiterating the fact that some people will not change because they're under the possession of a demon. And we just went through that as well. That's why I say all of these videos are really connected. And I love how God does that. When you're under possession of a demon, you're not going to walk in the way of the Lord. So you're likely to betray again. You're likely to backstab again. You're likely to hurt and harm again. But for those who are renewed in spirit and who are walking righteously, they had turned over a new leaf, you know that expression, then they might be the ones you want to reconnect with. But you have to be able to determine that for yourself. Okay? So, just to reiterate, I didn't give up on all bees because that one bee stung me. Okay? And some people have to know you may not want to give up on all relationships because you had bad experiences in the past. And the world will judge you. I will say they will judge you based on your past. But they don't stop the show. They don't stop the show. And when you put God in control of your life, he'll lead you to where you need to be. He'll connect you to those persons that have your best interests at heart. You just have to pay attention. You have to learn to listen to the Father and hear his voice and hear how he's guiding you. And you have to know that the path isn't always what you expected it to be or what you want it to look like. Yeah. So I was reminded of, because we ain't got in scripture, you know, Matthew 26. A lot was going on here. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. It says in verse 3, then the chief priests and the elders of the people assembled in the palace of the high priest, whose name was Caiaphas, and they plotted to arrest Jesus in some sly way and kill him. But not during the feast, they said, or there may be a riot among the people. Okay? So we know that all these people were plotting against Jesus. And guess what? Judas was the main betrayer. Judas, who was a disciple. In verse 14, then one of the 12, the one called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and asked, what are you willing to give me if I hand him over to you? So they counted out for him 30 silver coins. From then on, Judas watched for an opportunity to hand him over. And then in verse 47, while he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd, armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. The one I kiss is the man, arrest him. Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, greetings, Rabbi, and kissed him. Jesus replied, friend, do what you came to do. So, I mean, that's just confirmation that sometimes the people you love will betray you in the worst ways. Okay? And I use the analogy of the bee to indicate that sometimes it's the things you love. You know? Think about it like this when it comes to food and eating and diet. You know, I like ice cream and chocolate, okay? So, we love all that. Them chocolate Hershey's with almonds, yes, okay? That Snickers, yes, we love it. But it betrays you in the worst way because sometimes it betrays you along the waistline, your arms, you know, your legs. It just betrays you because you gain weight. You have a consequence that you really don't want in the end. That's how you have to look at it when it comes to relationships, friendships, anything. Sometimes you will be betrayed. But at the end of the day, so after all this betrayal that Jesus experienced, what did he do? He forgave. He forgave everyone. He forgave everyone who betrayed him. He forgave Judas. He forgave the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the chiefs, the elders. He forgave everybody. Okay? He demonstrated unconditional love. So I love Jesus because he is a teacher who leads by example. He doesn't just tell you things that, you know, he never experienced. This is how you're supposed to live. He does it. He demonstrates it. Okay? Through word, deed, and action. So this is for somebody right now. So yes, you have residual effects and residual impressions left those scars, that discoloration. You know what I'm saying? Discoloration, yeah. You have all the, you have the bumps, the bruises, all these things that indicates that you've been through something. And yeah, it's up to you to move forward. It's up to you to get to the next level in your life, to love again, to laugh again, to experience joy again. It's up to you. That is what God laid on my heart. Um, and it says that the student is not above the master, meaning that if Jesus experienced it, of course we're going to experience it as well. And it's not necessarily what you experience, it's what you do with that experience. I told you personally, I'm an optimist. I always see the glass half full. So whatever I go through, there's a lesson there. There's something for me to gain from it. I don't just take it for granted. Even if it was hurtful or painful, I was like, okay, so what was the lesson that you learned here? How can you progress moving forward? So yeah, that is it. That's the message. And I think this is a great close for all of the blessed words, blessed messages that went forth today. Okay, you are able to walk in power, the power and authority that God has given you. You just have to claim it. You have to respect it. You have to be obedient to it. And that is the message. Okay, so continue to sit pretty and walk happy. I'll talk to you real soon. Take care.